Hello, my name is David and welcome to my channel. Today I've got a video that's a little different than the others that I've done previously. Today we are going to do a little bit of a collection tour. Uh, this one particularly centered around my historical books, so history related content. If you have zero interest in history, this is probably not the video for you. However, I had promised Peg over at the History Shelf that I was going to do a kind of little run through my modest collection here and kind of do a video talking about showing the books that I have. And so I'm going to just dive right in because I enjoy hearing Peg talk about the history books that she's reading. I follow the History Fella, who's got a great new channel. Uh, Jennifer Brooks, when she talks about historical stuff, is phenomenal. And of course, Steve Donahue talks about historical stuff from time to time as well. And all four of those I've really enjoyed. And so pretty soon I'll be able to dip my toes in on talking about those on my channel as well. I'm getting ready to start my first piece of nonfiction here shortly that I'll be able to review once I finish it. So I'm going to start with my very small and modest historical fiction collection. It's very, very limited. All of this is a growing part of my collection. Most of this I haven't read yet, which is good because I got a good number of these historical volumes in a buy 10, get 10 free used book sale earlier this year. So, of course, I've got some Bernard Cornwell, Excalibur, novel of Arthur. Historical fiction, maybe, maybe not. Depends on where you fall on the Arthurian side of things. I've got a couple of Alison Weir novels, so The War of the Roses. I've got Henry VIII and the King and His Court. I've got The Princes in the Tower and The Life of Elizabeth I, so all those from her. I have exactly one book from the Saxon Tales series, Sword Song, which I believe this is book 3. I've gone through the first probably 8 or 9 of them. Really enjoyed it. I want to get all of the books in that series for my shelves eventually and go through them all and review them all as I go. And then I just recently picked up, for part of my birthday funds here, Ken Follett, The Pillars of the Earth, to finally get around to reading this one, which I'm hoping to get to sooner rather than later. So that's my historical fiction collection. It's small. I've got a lot of like medieval and ancient literature, which is kind of my niche. It's my bread and butter, and you will find that it's also reflected in the history stuff that I pick up. It tends to be historical in the medieval and earlier range, although there are a few small exceptions along the way. So let's just dive right in. A couple biography type things here. So I've got Chaucer's Tale. So this is 1386 in the Road to Canterbury by Paul Strom. I'm excited to dive into that one to learn a little bit more about Geoffrey Chaucer. Got a couple of Shakespeare ones. A Year in the Life of William Shakespeare, 1599 by James Shapiro. And Shakespeare's Kings, which is by John Julius Norwich. So some more literature focused history, and that's about where that part ends. So let's go into some medieval classics here. Geoffrey of Monmouth, The History of the Kings of Britain. I've read this before. It's been quite a while. I'm excited to reread it because I remember it being a really good read. And then, of course, Bede and the Ecclesiastical History of the English People. Another one that I've read many years ago. Really enjoyed it. I'm excited to get back into it and reread it at some point in time for the channel and talk about it. Those two are very much staples of any medieval collection. I've got Froissart's Chronicles, so this is him talking about he's a historian of the 100 Years' War. So that's the time frame of this. I've got Chronicles of the Crusades. So this is Joinville and Villehardouin, two different perspectives for two different crusade battles. So this is an interesting one that I'm hoping to get to at some point in time. The one that I'm going to be starting on here very soon, the Viking Wars. So War and Peace in King Alfred's Britain, 789 to 955 by Max Adams. I'm excited to dive into this. This looks like it's a bit of a chunker, but I'm sure it'll be a fun read. I'm really excited about that. Anything Viking and Anglo-Saxon England during around the time of King Alfred gets me excited. That's probably one of my favorite specific time frames in history, is that kind of time frame. Let's see here. We've got the Norse Atlantic Saga by Gwen Jones. Again, anything Viking, it's going to call my name. Got the Battle of Poitiers, 1356. Fantastic. David Green, I read this last year. I enjoyed every bit of it. It'll probably be a couple years before I get around to a reread on it, but I'm going to hang on to this because this is a really readable and enjoyable volume on just one specific battle. One that I've been working on almost all year, the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides, Norton Critical Edition. It's a slow read for me. I don't know why. I have a hard time getting in. It might be the translation. I'm hoping to get the landmark Thucydides at some point in time and see if that turns out to be a little bit better for me. But that's been I've enjoyed it. It's just been really, really slow going. I need to get back to it. And then I'm hoping that Peloponnesian War by Donald Kagan turns out to be a little bit more readable in its approach, which it probably is because it's a more modern author than the historical Thucydides. Deeds of the Saxons from Wonderkind of Corvey. Saxons, Anglo-Saxon. It's my jam, man. So, The Medieval Castle, Life in a Fortress in Peace and War by Philip Warner. I'm excited to explore some of these. Like, it's a Penguin classic, and I know absolutely nothing about it, but that's all I need to know. Medieval Castle. Sign me up. I've got a couple volumes from Wordsworth Military Library. I'm hoping to find more in this series. Julius Caesar, Man, Soldier, and Tyrant from Major General J.F.C. Fuller. One of my favorite wars to read about, the Agincourt War. This is by Lieutenant Colonel Alfred H. Byrne. The Crusades. Can't have too much about the Crusades by Robert Payne. I really want to start reading more about the Crusades and dig in deeper. And then Bosworth Field and the War of the Roses by A.L. Rose. So those are the 4 Wordsworth military classics I've got. I really need to dive into one of these. I don't know why I haven't yet. Well, because I haven't had them that long. But I'm really excited to get into some of those. A History of Roman Britain by Peter Salway. And again, most of these I haven't read. Of course, I've read The Art of War by Sun Tzu. It's been a long time. I can probably breeze through this one in the afternoon. I should probably do that just to get it off of my I really need to read it again list. Medieval Iceland, Society, Sagas, and Power by Jesse L. Byock. Castles and Warfare in the Middle Ages by Eugene Emmanuel and Violette Leduc. So this one, Steve Donahue himself has highly recommended as an essential read. So that's high up on my list. Got the Penguin Atlas of Ancient History and of Medieval History. Nothing like a good atlas. I mean, these These are fantastic with maps. I love it. This is one that I've read. So, Ancient Warfare, a very short introduction by Harry Sidebottom. This was good. It was a nice uh, little read to get a little bit of my feet wet in what Ancient Warfare looked like as a. I mean, this is short and bonus points for being pocket sized. It was real easy to carry around with me and be able to get that one off my list. So, The Medieval Machine, The Industrial Revolution of the Middle Ages by Jane Gimple. So, another Penguin book that, if it's got medieval in its name, it's calling my name. So, I've got Caesar, the Gallic War. I sadly have not read anything by Caesar yet. That will change this year. Gotta just say that now. Two Lives of Charlemagne, Einhard, and Notker the Stammerer. I've read the Einhard one previously. I had a different volume that had just him. Once I got the double feature, I got gifted the other one to a friend. But yeah, I'm excited to revisit that at some point in time. The Northern Crusades by Eric Christensen. This is a very, very used version of Gregory of Tours, The History of the Franks, but I have not read it. This was gifted to me by somebody else that got it used, so yeah, it's very loved, but I mean, it's the spine and everything's in good condition. It's just very dirty. Yeah, oh well. One of my other weaknesses is anything about King Arthur. This is my only historical text on Arthur, The Age of Arthur. So it is a history of the British Isles from 350 to 650, John Morris. So that's an area that I want to get more literature covering that time frame. We have Inventing the Middle Ages by Norman F. Cantor. Yeah, Cantor. So the lives, works, and ideas of the great medievalists of the 20th century. So I'm excited to talk about that one, to dive in and talk about. Here's one that I read earlier this year, The Time Traveler's Guide to Medieval England. I read this before I started my channel, but the Handbook for Visitors to the 14th Century by Ian Mortimer. Apparently he's got some other eras that he's done a similar treatment to. I enjoyed this one a lot. Very informational, helps you to learn a little bit more about the everyday comings and goings of what it would be like for a common person in that time period. Invaluable resource. One that I'll probably open and reference frequently. A Most Holy War, the Albigensian Crusade and the Battle for Christendom by Mark Gregory Pegg. Again, I want to know more about the Crusades. I want to read more about the Crusades. This is one that caught my eye because it's about Crusades. Speaking of, The First Crusade by Thomas Asbridge. So it is a new history, the roots of the conflict between Christianity and Islam. I think this is going to be an extremely fascinating read when I finally get around to it. Eleanor of Aquitaine and the Four Kings by Amy Kelly. "20 Decisive Battles of the World." So this has got, it's a new edition of Creasy's world famous classic. So it's got 20 different battles there. So starting at Marathon, going down to Stalingrad. I'm excited to read this one as well and learn some more of the different battles out there. Battle of Agincourt, edited by Anne Curry and Malcolm Mercer. So this is a nice big volume. I kind of flipped through it a little bit. I mean, it's got good information and images inside. I think I started it at one point in time, didn't get very far before I got sidetracked with something else. So this is one I want to circle back around to at some point in time. Two volumes that I just recently got as part of my birthday haul here. I got The Landmark Herodotus, so I'm excited to dive into that one and read the works of Herodotus. And I just love these landmark books. And highly recommended from Steve Donahue, The Landmark Julius Caesar. So this is the complete works, so I no longer need the separate Gallic War, except for portability and easier time reading, but I have a feeling this is going to be my Caesar Bible, so to speak, when I'm looking to read about and learn about Julius Caesar and his various writings. So I've got one more book here, and then I go into my last set of things. I'm about 2/3 of the way done through the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, so I lied. I'm actually going to be having this featured very soon on my channel. Before the end of this month, I'm going to be talking about this one. This is phenomenal. I've really enjoyed this one, and this one has all kinds of images and side notes and in-depth details on various things related to Anglo-Saxon England and England throughout the historical periods and the different cultures that were coming together during the times that it's talking about. And so I also did something on my channel where I was committing to read every book by an author in publication order, and somebody had named Antonia Fraser as one of the authors that I would read every book by. I knew nothing about Antonia Fraser, so when I spun my wheel, I spun it twice and got two different names. Ray Bradbury, who was a sci-fi author who I've read before, really have enjoyed. I'm excited to read through his prolific backlog. The other one I got was Antonia Fraser. So I've since found a handful of these locally. So I've got The Warrior Queens by Antonia Fraser. So this is from Britain's Queen Boudica to Elizabeth I, from Catherine the Great to the 20th century triumvirate of Mare, Gandhi and Thatcher, the paradox, the politics, the legend, and the lives of the sovereign women who have led their nations in war. I'm so excited to get to this one. I have Cromwell by Antonia Fraser, Mary Queen of Scots by Antonia Fraser, Royal Charles, so Charles II in the Restoration by Antonia Fraser, The Wives of Henry VIII by Antonia Fraser, and last, but surely not least, The Lives of the Kings and Queens of England, edited by Antonia Fraser. So that's a real quick and dirty tour through the historical books that I have on my shelf. It's a decent sized collection. It's way more than I would have thought originally, but it's still growing. I mean, I don't have anywhere near the volumes I would like to have, even just covering this range of stuff. And I'd like to really start picking up some volumes around the Napoleonic era and during the musket and pike eras, and learn more about those spans of history as well. So if you have any recommendations for Napoleon, anything from musket and pike, Enlightenment type era, if you have anything medieval or ancient recommendations, or if there are books that I picked up and showed you that you're like, hey, you need to read that now, let me know. That way I can help prioritize some of this list. I'm always looking for recommendations. I'm always looking for suggestions on the order in which to start these things. So the first couple Antonia Fraser books are unfortunately not her historical works. The first one is a King Arthur retelling, the second one a Robin Hood retelling. So it may be a few months before I get around to Antonia Fraser in terms of those books that I just showed you, but I'm looking forward to diving into what she's talking about, because that's an era that is, for a lot of them, just past medieval, but still close to where it's going to fit comfortably in where my interests lie personally in terms of history and what I want to learn and everything else. So thanks for watching. Again, leave me comments. Let me know what I should be watching for, what I should be reading next. If you have suggestions, uh, even stuff more modern in terms of time frame than Napoleonic. I have no qualms. I know I need to learn more about the world wars, the more modern wars that we've been doing, the Age of Sail stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, and that's the beauty of history is there's so much that you can look into, and that's also the bad part of history is because you can also get bogged down in your specific little comfort zone that you don't really branch out. And I know that most folks, their comfort zone is not the area that I specialize in. I wouldn't even say specialized because I'm still new and growing in this area. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading more of these. Expect me to, over the course of time, get through chunks of these and talk about them as I read them and review them on my channel, because that's my hope, is that this channel spurs me to really go through my backlog and really start digging in on the books that I have sitting on my shelf and get them read and talk about them and find other people who might be interested in them and help them to find these great books and learn more about these periods of history. So, Peg, thank you very much for all that you do on your channel. You've inspired me to want to read more of these and talk more about these, and to even start watching for more of these. Although I held myself back by and large this month with my birthday funds because I didn't want to go overboard and add even more historical books that I when I still had all of these I haven't really started chipping away at yet. So uh, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and have a wonderful day.